Chosen one, why does your heart feel like it's carrying stones you never picked up? Why have you been walking through fire while others seem to glide through meadows? Why has God allowed you to bleed in places where others have never even been scratched? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. If you're hearing this right now, it is no accident. This is not YouTube. This is not another video that found its way into your feed. This is a summons from heaven itself, a divine appointment that was scheduled before you took your first breath. You didn't stumble here. You were guided. You didn't just survive the valley. You passed through it. You didn't just endure the wilderness. You conquered it. But here's what's about to shock you to your core. Every betrayal that left you gasping for air, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God had forgotten your address, every door that slammed in your face when breakthrough seemed just inches away. None of it was random. All of it was preparation. Before we go one word further, I need to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. But right now, if something deep inside your chest is stirring, if you feel that ancient knowing, that sacred recognition, type in the comments 777. That simple act is saying, "Yes, Lord, I'm ready." Because what I'm about to reveal will explain why your life has felt like a battlefield when others live in peace. You see, chosen one, the tests you thought were meant to break you, they were actually meant to make you. The trials that felt like punishment, they were divine qualification. The pain that felt like God's silence, it was heaven taking notes. You passed the test, and now God is about to raise you up. Stay with me until the end of this message, because before these words are finished, your spirit will see what your eyes could never see, your heart will understand what your mind could never grasp, and your soul will finally know why you've been walking through hell to get to heaven. The elevation begins. Now, do you remember the night you held your spouse's cold hand for the last time? Do you remember staring at that empty chair at the breakfast table, wondering how you'd survive another day without their voice? Do you remember when your own children, the ones you raised in Sunday school, walked away from everything you taught them about God? Dear chosen one, I see you. I see the weight you carry. I see the scars you hide behind that gentle smile when people ask, "How are you doing?" Let me take you back to those moments that nearly broke you. That phone call at 2 a.m. when the doctor said the words that shattered your world. The foreclosure notice that arrived the same week you buried your husband. The Christmas morning when none of your children called. The mirror that reflected a stranger, older, more fragile, wondering if this is all there is. You've walked through valleys that would have destroyed lesser souls. You've carried burdens that would have crushed people half your age. You've endured losses that doctors don't have names for, because grief this deep doesn't fit in medical textbooks. But here's what the world doesn't understand about your story. Your life wasn't falling apart. Your life was a furnace. Every loss was fire. Every heartbreak was heat. Every sleepless night was the temperature rising. But the fire didn't burn you, it refined you. James 1:12 declares with thunderous authority, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." You persevered, chosen one. When your 401 Kelvin disappeared in 2008, you persevered. When your doctor used words like terminal and stage 4, you persevered. When your children stopped visiting and your grandchildren became strangers, you still got up every morning and whispered, "Lord, I trust you." That wasn't just survival. That was spiritual warfare of the highest order. Think about Job for a moment. This man lost his children, his wealth, his health, even his wife's support. Sitting in ashes, Scraping his sores with broken pottery, he could have cursed God and died. Instead, he declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." You are Job in this generation. Every financial crisis that should have destroyed you but didn't, every health scare that should have taken you but couldn't, every family betrayal that should have broken you but only made you stronger. These weren't accidents. These weren't punishments. These were divine tests that hell thought you'd fail. But you didn't fail, did you? When your husband's medical bills ate through your life savings, you found a way to pay them. When your arthritis made it hard to climb stairs, you still climbed them. When your children criticized your faith as outdated, you still prayed for them every single night. The enemy threw everything he had at you: poverty, sickness, loneliness, abandonment, and you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. You're still watching this message because something inside your spirit refuses to quit. That something is the mark of the chosen. But let me tell you what really happened during those dark seasons. While you were crying into your pillow, God was taking notes. While you were rationing your medication because Medicare wouldn't cover it all, heaven was calculating your reward. While you were eating dinner alone for the 1,000th time, angels were recording your faithfulness. Every tear you shed in secret became liquid gold in heaven's vault. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was too weak to speak became thunder in the throne room. Every morning you chose to get up when staying in bed would have been easier became another deposit in your spiritual bank account. You think you were just surviving? No, chosen one, you were qualifying. Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him to deliver Israel from Egypt. 80. The world would have put him in a nursing home, but God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now you're ready." Why? Because 40 years in Pharaoh's palace taught him leadership, and 40 years in the wilderness taught him dependence on God. Your wilderness years weren't wasted time. They were graduate school for the miraculous. Your financial struggles taught you that God is your provider when everything else fails. Your health battles taught you that His strength is made perfect in weakness. Your loneliness taught you to find your identity in Him, not in the approval of others. Every test was a lesson. Every trial was training. Every hardship was preparation for the elevation that's coming. The world looked at your struggles and said, "What a shame." But God looked at your struggles and said, "What a champion." You didn't break when your life savings vanished. You found odd jobs at 75 and trusted God for daily bread. You didn't bow when the diagnosis came back positive. You fought cancer with chemotherapy and prayer. You didn't quit when your family walked away. You kept loving them from a distance and believing for their return. Chosen one, you didn't break, you didn't bow, you didn't quit. And heaven stood up and said, "This one passed the test." If you've ever cried through the night but still whispered, "God, I trust you," put amen in the comments right now. Let your testimony echo across this digital sanctuary. Let other survivors know they're not alone. But here's what's about to shock you. Those tests you passed, they weren't just random suffering. They were divine qualification for something extraordinary. Because God doesn't waste pain on people. He doesn't plan to promote. He doesn't refine gold. He doesn't intend to display. And display you, He will. You want to know why your life has been harder than everyone else's? Why you've carried burdens that would crush ordinary people? Why you've walked through valleys so dark that others wouldn't even venture near the entrance? Because God doesn't test everyone the same way. He doesn't put His finest china through the same washing cycle as paper plates. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. The depth of your testing reveals the height of your calling. The intensity of your trials exposes the magnitude of your destiny. Every tear you've shed, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you've questioned, if you could take one more step, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation for a purpose so magnificent that heaven itself had to make sure you were strong enough to carry it. Let me take you back 4,000 years to a 17-year-old boy named Joseph. This kid had dreams that made his brothers want to kill him. Literally, Genesis 37 tells us they threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and told their father he was dead. Can you imagine? Your own blood, your own family deciding you're better off gone. Joseph spent 13 years, going from pit to Potiphar's house to prison. 13 years of wondering if God had forgotten his promises. 13 years of watching other people get promoted while he stayed locked up. 13 years of silence from heaven. But here's what Joseph didn't know during those dark years. God was building an administrator who could save the known world from starvation. Every betrayal was teaching him discernment. Every injustice was developing his character. Every day in prison was preparing him to run a kingdom. Genesis 41-40 records Pharaoh's words, "You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." From the pit to the palace. From forgotten prisoner to second in command of Egypt. Why? Because the pit was not his end. The prison was not his punishment. The waiting was not waste, it was his preparation. Now let me tell you about a young Jewish girl named Hadassah. You know her better as Esther, orphaned, powerless, living in exile in a foreign land where her people were hated. If you walked past her on the street, you'd never guess that inside this forgotten girl lived the salvation of an entire race. But God saw what man couldn't see. He positioned this orphan in a beauty contest that would place her in the palace of the most powerful king on earth. Not for glamour, not for comfort, for purpose. When the decree went out to annihilate every Jew in the Persian Empire, suddenly Esther wasn't just a pretty face in a palace. She was the only voice that could speak to save her people. Mordecai looked at his terrified cousin and spoke words that echo through eternity. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. Every rejection she'd faced as an orphan taught her humility. Every loss she'd endured prepared her to risk everything for others. Every night she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering why she had no parents. Was God breaking her heart wide enough to carry the burden of an entire nation? The orphanage was not her end. The exile was not her finish. The waiting was not her punishment. It was her preparation. But you want to talk about being overlooked? Let me tell you about a red-headed kid named David. When the prophet Samuel came looking for the next king of Israel, David's own father didn't even bother to call him in from the fields. 7 sons stood before the man of God, and David wasn't even invited to the audition. While his brothers looked impressive on the outside, David was out there with the sheep, learning to hear God's voice in the silence. While they polished their armor, he was perfecting his aim with a slingshot. While they practiced their speeches, he was writing psalms that would comfort broken hearts for millennia. 1 Samuel 16-7 captures the moment perfectly. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. David spent years running for his life in caves, hiding from a jealous king who wanted him dead. Years of wondering if God's promise was real. Years of feeling forgotten while Saul sat on the throne that heaven had already given to David. But every night in those caves was building a warrior king who would establish a kingdom that would never end. Every psalm he wrote in darkness would become light for millions trapped in their own darkness. Every time he chose to spare Saul's life when he could have killed him, was God developing the character of a man after his own heart. The cave was not his end. The exile was not his finish. The waiting was not his punishment. It was his preparation. Do you see the pattern, chosen one? Do you understand what God has been doing in your life? Every Joseph has his pit before his palace. Every Esther faces exile before elevation. Every David gets overlooked before he's ordained. The pit was not your end. The fire was not your finish. The waiting was not your punishment. It was your preparation. You think those years of struggle were wasted. You think that betrayal that nearly killed you was pointless. You think that season when God seemed silent was abandonment. No. Every scar on your soul is not shame. It is your graduation certificate in the school of God. The enemy meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. What was designed to destroy you was actually developing you. What felt like torture was actually training. What seemed like punishment was actually positioning. Right now, I need you to understand something that will revolutionize how you see your story. You haven't been disqualified by your trials. You've been qualified by them. You haven't been damaged by your battles. You've been strengthened by them. You haven't been forgotten in your wilderness. You've been prepared in it. If you feel this truth stirring in your chest, if your spirit is recognizing what your mind couldn't understand, say it out loud right now. I'm not broken, I'm prepared. Because chosen one, the very tests that made you feel forgotten are about to make you unforgettable. The same God who raised Joseph from the pit, positioned Esther in the palace, and crowned David as king, is about to show the world what he's been preparing in you all along. But first, you need to understand exactly what happens when God decides it's time to elevate his tested ones. So you want to know what's coming? You want to understand what happens when heaven decides it's time to move on your behalf? Let me paint you a picture that will set your soul on fire and make your spirit leap within you. The elevation God is about to release in your life isn't some gentle upgrade. This isn't a modest improvement. This is a seismic shift that will leave you staring at your own life, wondering if you're dreaming. Your bank account is about to tell a different story. Bills that have haunted you for years will be paid in ways you can't explain. That mortgage payment that kept you awake at 3 in the morning? Covered. The medical bills stacked on your kitchen table like accusations? Gone. Money will flow from sources you never imagined, opportunities you never applied for, favor you never earned. The God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills is about to liquidate some assets on your behalf. But it doesn't stop there, chosen one. Your family tree is about to bloom in miraculous ways. Those prodigal children who broke your heart, they're coming home. That daughter who hasn't called in 2 years, her phone is about to ring your number. That son who chose addiction over family. Something is stirring in his spirit right now. God is sending divine dreams, supernatural encounters, unexplainable urgency to reconnect with the parent who never stopped praying. The enemy stole your family dinners, but God is about to restore your legacy. And your body, oh, your precious body that's carried you through decades of warfare strength is returning that will defy every medical report. That arthritis that makes mornings painful, healing is flowing. That heart condition that makes you cautious, divine repair is happening. Doctors will run tests twice because the results don't match your history. Your energy will return not because you found the right supplement, but because the great physician just performed surgery on your timeline. Psalm the 3rd of December layers with thunderous authority. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. Do you feel it? Your head is being lifted right now, not with pride, but with divine positioning. God is adjusting your posture for what's coming. But let me tell you something that will blow your mind completely. You're not stepping into a new chapter of the same old book. You're not getting a promotion within the same company. You're not even moving to a better neighborhood in the same city. You're stepping into a new dimension. A dimension where impossible is God's starting point. A dimension where your past pain becomes your present power. A dimension where the very people who counted you out will be forced to count you in. This isn't just breakthrough, beloved. This is breakthrough. Break over, break under, and break around. Every direction the enemy tried to block you from is about to become your highway of blessing. Listen to me carefully. That business idea you buried because someone said you were too old, it's being resurrected with divine funding. That ministry dream you abandoned because the church rejected you, God is building you a platform they never could have provided. That relationship you thought was impossible, heaven is orchestrating connections that will leave you speechless. But here's where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. The very doors that slammed in your face with such violence that you felt the wind of rejection for months afterward, Those same doors are about to swing open, so wide you'll need to duck to avoid being hit by the opportunity. Not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. Not because you deserve it, but because He declared it. Not because you figured out the formula, but because He decided it was time. Every person who told you to be realistic is about to get a front row seat to watch God obliterate reality as they know it. Every voice that said you were too old, too late, too damaged, too ordinary is about to be silenced by the thunderous applause of heaven celebrating your elevation. The job market said you were unemployable. God is about to make you indispensable. The doctors said your condition was permanent. The great physician is about to prove them wrong. Your family said you'd never change. The Holy Spirit is about to demonstrate the power of transformation. But I need you to understand something that will determine whether you receive this elevation or watch it pass you by. This moment right now, as these words are penetrating your spirit, this is your portal. This is your invitation. This is your access point to a dimension you've never lived in before. Type 777 in the comments if you're ready to rise. Not tomorrow, when you feel more confident. Not next week when your circumstances look better. Right now, while the anointing is heavy, while the Spirit is moving, while heaven's attention is focused on your situation. Say it with me, chosen one. Say it with the authority of someone who has survived every test. Say it with the confidence of someone whose God never lies. Say it until it echoes in the spirit realm. This is my season, because the God who brought you through the valley is the same God who's about to seat you at the mountaintop. And what happens next will leave the devil himself wondering how someone who was so broken just became so dangerous to his kingdom. But here's what's going to shock you, chosen one. This elevation isn't just spiritual, it's visible. People are going to see something different about you, something they can't explain, something that makes them stop mid-sentence and stare. Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and everything shifts? The energy changes. Conversations pause, eyes turn. That's not charisma, beloved. That's not confidence. That's the glow of someone who's been touched by the Almighty. And that glow is coming for you. Listen to me carefully. In the next 30 to 90 days, people are going to start asking you questions. What's different about you? They'll whisper, you look radiant. Your eyes shine with a peace I've never seen. Your posture carries a strength that wasn't there before. Your smile, God, your smile radiates pure joy. And you'll know exactly what happened. You'll remember this moment, this message, this divine appointment when heaven touched your life. But let me tell you what's really going to blow your mind. The Bible says in Matthew 5:16, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." That light, that actual, visible, undeniable light is about to emanate from your very being. Your skin will glow with health that defies your medical records. Your voice will carry authority that commands respect. Your presence will shift atmospheres before you even speak a word. This isn't metaphorical, dear one. This is supernatural transformation manifesting in the natural realm. Think about Moses when he came down from Mount Sinai. Exodus 34-29 tells us his face was so radiant from speaking with God that the Israelites couldn't even look at him. They begged him to put a veil over his face because the glory was too intense. That same glory is about to rest upon you. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. He's been working overtime to keep you hidden, to keep you small, to convince you that your best days are behind you. Because he knows, he knows that when a chosen one finally steps into their divine glow, kingdoms shift. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many years have you been dimming your light to make others comfortable? How many times have you apologized for your wisdom, your discernment, your God-given insights? How long have you been playing small in a world that desperately needs your radiance? Those days are over. Look at Oprah Winfrey. Fired from her first television job, told she was unfit for television news, rejected, dismissed, written off. But God saw something different. He saw a vessel ready to be raised up. Today, she's worth over $2.5 billion and has touched millions of lives worldwide. Consider Tyler Perry. Homeless at 16, sleeping in his car, working odd jobs just to survive. The world saw failure. God saw preparation. Today, he owns one of the largest film studios in America and employs hundreds of people. Think about Viola Davis. Growing up in poverty so severe, she dumpster dived for food. The world saw lack. Heaven saw a future Academy Award winner who would inspire generations. What did they all have in common? They carried a glow that couldn't be extinguished, a light that refused to be dimmed, a radiance that demanded recognition, and that same divine glow is awakening in you right now. But here's where it gets controversial. Are you ready for the hatred that comes with elevation? Because when God raises you up, when that supernatural glow begins to emanate from your life, there will be people who can't stand it. Family members who preferred you broken, friends who were comfortable with your struggles, co-workers who benefited from your small thinking. They'll say, you've changed. They'll claim you think you're better than them. They'll try to remind you of who you used to be. And you know what you're going to say? You're absolutely right. I have changed. The old me is dead. The new me is alive in Christ. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's between you and God. Here's the truth they don't want you to understand. Your glow isn't just for you, it's for them. Isaiah 60:1 declares, Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Your light is rising not to blind others, but to guide them out of their own darkness. But first, you have to believe you're worthy of this transformation. Right now, something in your spirit is arguing with these words. Not me, you're thinking. I'm too damaged, too old, too ordinary. Stop lying to yourself. God doesn't make mistakes. The same God who painted sunsets and carved mountains and breathed stars into existence handpicked you for this moment. The same God who raised Jesus from the dead is about to raise you from the grave of mediocrity, limitation, and small thinking. Your enemies, and yes, you have them, are about to witness something that will leave them speechless. They watched you struggle, they saw you stumble, they counted you out. But they never counted on the God factor. They're going to watch you rise with a glow so undeniable, so supernatural, so obviously divine that they'll have no choice but to ask, how? How did this happen? How did someone who went through what you went through come out shining like the sun? And you're going to look them dead in the eye and say, not me, God. I didn't do this. He did, and he's just getting started. But here's the question that's burning in your chest right now. Are you ready to carry that glow? Are you prepared for the responsibility that comes with divine radiance? Because once this light starts shining through you, there's no hiding, there's no going back to small, there's no returning to the shadows. Comment glory to God if you're ready to carry that glow, if you're prepared to shine so bright that hell itself has to shield its eyes. Because what I'm about to show you next will reveal exactly how this transformation begins and why it starts with one simple act of surrender that changes everything. Chosen one, listen to me very carefully. What God is doing in your life right now, this elevation, this breakthrough, this divine promotion, it's not just about you. It never was. You think you're just one person fighting your battles, carrying your burdens, walking your lonely path. But you're wrong. Dead wrong. You are not an individual. You are a bloodline. You are a spiritual patriarch. You are a generational game changer, standing at the crossroads of eternity. Every tear you've shed, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every moment you refused to quit when quitting would have been easier, it wasn't just for your healing. It was for your great-grandchildren who haven't been born yet. It was for the children in your community who need to see what real faith looks like. It was for a generation that's drowning in despair and needs to witness what happens when God raises up his chosen ones. Think about Abraham for a moment. 75 years old when God called him. 75! The world would have said he was past his prime, ready for the rocking chair. But God said, "Leave everything you know, Abraham. I'm going to make you the father of nations." Genesis 12:2 declares, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." Abraham didn't just receive a blessing. He became a blessing that would echo through 4,000 years of human history. Every Jewish child, every Christian believer, every person who calls on the name of the Lord can trace their spiritual DNA back to one old man who said yes when God said move. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. Abraham's greatest test didn't come at 75. It came when he was pushing 100 years old. Mount Moriah. Genesis 22. God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the very son through whom all the promises were supposed to flow. Can you imagine? Can you feel the weight of that moment? Abraham climbing that mountain, knowing that his obedience would determine whether his lineage would be blessed or cursed for generations. One decision, one moment of faith, eternal consequences. That's you right now, chosen one. You think your decisions only affect you, but every choice you make is setting the spiritual trajectory for your bloodline. Every time you choose faith over fear, you're creating a pathway for your children's children to walk in victory. Every time you refuse to bow to circumstances, you're building a legacy of resilience that will strengthen your family tree for 100 years. Look at Ruth, a widow, a foreigner, a woman with no social standing, no financial security, no earthly reason to hope. But she made one declaration that changed everything. "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God." Ruth 1:16. Ruth didn't know she was speaking her way into the bloodline of Christ. She didn't know that her great-great-grandson would be King David. She didn't know that 2,000 years later, the Messiah would trace his earthly lineage through her faithful decision. One woman, one choice. One moment of loyalty that literally changed the course of human history. And what about in our time? Martin Luther King Jr., a preacher from Atlanta who could have stayed comfortable in his congregation, but he said yes to a dream that was bigger than himself. His elevation wasn't just about civil rights. It was about showing America what happens when a chosen one steps into their divine assignment. His legacy still speaks. His impact still ripples through every courthouse, every classroom, every conversation about justice in America. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. 27 years. But his suffering wasn't wasted. It became the foundation for a nation's transformation. One man's willingness to endure became a blueprint for reconciliation that the whole world still studies. Even Denzel Washington understood this principle. In a prophecy spoken over him as a young man, he was told he would touch millions of lives. He could have chased money, fame, ego. Instead, he chose to be a vessel. Every role he takes, every speech he gives, every young actor he mentors, it's all connected to a legacy that extends far beyond Hollywood. Chosen one. Your breakthrough is not just about your bank account. Your healing is not just about your body. Your elevation is not just about your comfort. You are being raised up to become a spiritual anchor for your family line. Your testimony is going to become their blueprint. Your victory is going to become their confidence. Your faith is going to become their foundation. Right now, there are children in your bloodline, some already born, some still in the mind of God, who are going to face battles you can't imagine. And they're going to win those battles because of the spiritual ground you're taking right now. They're going to have access to breakthrough because of the prayers you're praying today. They're going to walk in authority because of the tests you passed and the elevation God is bringing you into. You are not just surviving this season, dear one. You are sowing a legacy that hell itself cannot erase. Your name is being written in heaven's hall of fame, not just for what you endured, but for what your endurance made possible for generations to come. If you believe your rise will bless generations, write legacy in the comments right now. because what I'm about to show you next will reveal exactly how God multiplies the impact of one faithful life across eternity itself. Dear chosen one, I can feel some of you pulling back right now. I can sense the old familiar voice whispering in your ear, the same voice that's been your tormentor for decades. It's telling you this sounds too good to be true. It's reminding you of your age, your failures, your limitations. The enemy whispers, you're too old, too late, too tired. But God says, according to 1 Peter 5-6, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Your due time is now. Listen to me carefully. That voice of doubt isn't your voice. It's the same demonic whisper that told Moses he was too old at 80. It's the same lie that convinced Sarah she was too barren at 90. It's the same deception that made David think he was too small to face Goliath. But Moses split the Red Sea. Sarah birthed nations. David toppled giants. You think you're running out of time? You think your moment has passed? Let me shatter that lie with the hammer of God's truth. Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything. Caleb was 85 when he demanded his mountain. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over the Messiah. Your wrinkles aren't signs of expiration, they're marks of experience. Your grey hair isn't evidence of decline, it's a crown of wisdom. Your slower steps aren't weakness, they're the measured walk of someone who knows exactly where they're going. No more delay, no more doubt, no more hiding. You've been sitting in the shadows for too long, convincing yourself that your season is over, while God has been preparing your greatest chapter. You've been whispering when he's called you to roar. You've been tiptoeing when he's commanded you to march. Remember the walls of Jericho? For 6 days, God's people marched in silence around those massive walls. 6 days of walking the same circle, seeing the same obstacles, facing the same impossibilities. I can imagine the whispers. This isn't working. Nothing's changing. Maybe we heard wrong. But on the seventh day, they didn't just march. They shouted. And those walls that had stood for generations didn't just crack. They collapsed. They didn't fall gradually. They fell completely, instantly, supernaturally. Your 7 days are up, chosen one. Your countdown has begun. You've circled your Jericho long enough. That addiction that's haunted your family for 3 generations, that's your Jericho. That financial curse that's kept you bound, that's your Jericho. That depression that's told you to give up, that's your Jericho. That loneliness that's convinced you nobody cares, that's your Jericho. But today is your 7th day. Today is your shout of victory. The tests you've passed weren't just about surviving, they were about qualifying. Every tear you cried in secret built your authority. Every prayer you whispered in the dark accumulated power. Every time you chose faith over fear, you were earning credentials for this moment. You are not the same person who started this journey. You are not the broken soul who entered the wilderness. You are a warrior forged in fire. You are a saint refined by suffering. You are a chosen one proven by pain. God doesn't promote the untested. He elevates the proven. He doesn't lift up the comfortable. He raises up the conquered. And you, dear one, have conquered everything hell threw at you and lived to tell about it. The financial breakthrough isn't coming, it's here. The healing isn't approaching, it's activated. The restoration isn't someday, it's today. The elevation isn't future, it's now. Stop looking at your bank account like it defines your worth. Stop staring at that medical report like it controls your destiny. Stop listening to people who measure your value by your productivity, when God measures your power by your perseverance. You passed the test. You endured the trial. You survived the storm. And now, right now, heaven decrees, rise. Rise from the ashes of your disappointments. Rise from the grave of your broken dreams. Rise from the pit of other people's opinions. Rise because the same God who raised Jesus from the dead is raising you from every place of defeat. Stand where you are right now. I don't care if you're in your living room, your car, or your kitchen. Stand up and speak these words out loud. This is my appointed time. This is my moment of elevation. This is the day everything shifts. Don't just think it, declare it. Write today's date in the comments. Mark this as the day your elevation began. Because when you speak it, heaven moves. When you declare it, angels respond. When you believe it, miracles manifest. Your time is now, chosen one. Your moment has arrived. Your elevation is here. The question isn't whether you're ready. God already made you ready through every test you passed. The question is, will you rise? Dear chosen one, I need you to close your eyes for just a moment. Picture yourself standing before an ancient mirror, but the glass is clouded with years of smoke, dust, and lies. Every time you've looked at your reflection, you've seen distortion. You've seen failure where God sees triumph. You've seen weakness where heaven sees warrior strength. Tonight, God is taking a divine cloth and wiping that mirror clean. The world called you weak, but heaven calls you warrior. The world called you broken, but heaven calls you chosen. The world called you forgotten, but heaven calls you risen. The world called you too old, but heaven calls you perfectly timed. Listen to me carefully. Every label that's been slapped across your life like a scarlet letter, every whisper that said you weren't enough, every voice that declared you finished, those weren't God's voice. Those were the echoes of a world that doesn't understand how heaven operates. But what happens when you finally see yourself through heaven's eyes? What happens when God removes the smoke and shows you who you really are? You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not defined by your age. You are not limited by your bank account or your past failures. 1 Peter 2-9 declares with thunderous authority, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession." Royal priesthood. Let that sink into your bones. You're not just surviving another day, you're carrying royal blood through your spiritual veins. You're not just getting older, you're getting closer to the throne room, where your true identity was written before time began. But here's what breaks my heart. How many mornings have you looked in that bathroom mirror and seen only what life has taken from you? How many times have you counted wrinkles instead of counting victories? How many nights have you gone to bed feeling like you've somehow disappointed the very God who knitted you together in your mother's womb? The enemy has been running a propaganda campaign against your identity for decades. He's convinced you that your gray hair is a sign of decline when God calls it a crown of glory. He's made you believe that your slower pace means you're falling behind, when heaven sees it as wisdom, learning to move with divine timing rather than worldly urgency. Your scars, the enemy calls them shame. But when God looks at those same scars, he sees his signature. Every place you've bled, every wound that should have destroyed you but didn't, those aren't marks of defeat. Those are the autograph of the Almighty saying, "This one is mine. This one survived because I had plans for them." Think about Jacob wrestling with the angel until daybreak. When morning came, he walked away with a limp, but also with a new name. He was no longer Jacob the deceiver. He was Israel, the one who wrestled with God and prevailed. That limp wasn't his disability, it was his testimony. Every step he took for the rest of his life declared, "I touched the divine and lived to tell about it." Your limp is your testimony, chosen one. Your struggle is your strength. Your test was your qualification. But the mirror God is showing you tonight reveals something even more shocking. When you look at yourself after this message, you will no longer see scars, you will see signatures of God's glory. You will no longer see age, you will see authority. You will no longer see limitation, you will see divine assignment. Here's what heaven sees when it looks at you right now. They see someone who's been through the refiner's fire and came out pure gold. They see someone who's walked through valleys of shadow and emerged carrying light. They see someone who's been tested by hell itself and refused to bow. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." 2 Corinthians 4:16. Outwardly wasting away. That's just the temporary shell. But inwardly, in the place that matters eternally, you are being renewed, restored, recharged with heaven's power. Every morning you wake up is God saying, I'm not finished with you yet. Every breath you take is heaven declaring, your assignment is still active. Every beat of your heart is the rhythm of divine purpose that refuses to quit. You think you're too old to dream new dreams? Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything and chase a promise he couldn't see. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to impossibility. Moses was 80 when he split the Red Sea. Caleb was 85 when he said, give me this mountain. Your birth certificate doesn't determine your expiration date. Your wrinkles don't diminish your worth. Your age doesn't limit your anointing. When God looks at you, He doesn't see someone counting down days. He sees someone counting up victories. He doesn't see someone past their prime. He sees someone entering their purpose. He doesn't see decline. He sees divine timing unfolding exactly as He planned. The mirror is clean now, chosen one. The smoke has cleared. The lies have been exposed. And what you see staring back at you is not the broken, forgotten, overlooked person the world tried to convince you that you were. You see a warrior. You see royalty. You see someone chosen before the foundation of the world for such a time as this. Write in the comments right now, I see myself through heaven's eyes. Let this be your declaration. Let this be your war cry against every lie that ever tried to define you. Let this be your announcement to heaven and earth, that you finally see what God has always seen. Because when you truly see yourself through heaven's eyes, everything changes. Your posture changes, your prayers change, your expectation changes. You stop begging God for breakthrough and start walking in the authority He's already given you. But this revelation of your true identity is just the beginning. Because what happens when someone who's been living beneath their calling finally sees themselves as heaven sees them? Now let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your very foundation, chosen one. Something that will finally explain why your life has felt like a war zone while others seem to live in peace. The enemy didn't fight you because of your past. He fought you because of your future. You think those attacks were random. You think that depression that hit you like a freight train at 3 a.m. was just chemistry. You think that string of betrayals from people you trusted most was coincidence. You think those financial disasters that came one after another were just bad luck. Dear one, hell itself saw your blueprint before you were even born. Think about this. When was the last time you saw a demolition crew waste dynamite on an empty lot? When have you witnessed armies mobilize against a vacant field? When does darkness ever waste its ammunition on powerless people? Never. The intensity of your warfare was directly proportional to the weight of your calling. The enemy saw what God had written over your life in eternity, and it terrified him. That's why the storm raged so fiercely around you. But storms don't rage against empty ships. They rage against vessels carrying treasure. You want biblical proof? Look at Daniel. This man prayed 3 times a day, lived righteously, served faithfully, yet they threw him into a den of hungry lions. Why? Because his prayers were shifting nations. His integrity was exposing corruption. His very existence was threatening the kingdom of darkness. Daniel 6:16 records the moment. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. But here's what shocks me. Those lions didn't roar. They didn't pace. They laid down like house cats. Why? Because what Daniel carried was more powerful than what could devour him. That's you, chosen one. What you carry is more powerful than what tried to consume you. Look at Joseph, 17 years old, with dreams from heaven, sold into slavery by his own brothers, betrayed, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in prison for years. The enemy threw everything at this young man because hell recognized the future prime minister of Egypt before Joseph himself did. Genesis 39:20 says, Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But notice what it says next. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. The prison wasn't his punishment. It was his preparation for the palace. Every cell you sat in, whether literal or metaphorical, was actually a classroom. Every betrayal was building your discernment. Every financial collapse was teaching you that your security doesn't come from banks, it comes from the bank of heaven. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. Why do you think Jesus himself, the Son of the living God, had to sweat drops of blood in Gethsemane? Why did the Prince of Peace have to endure such agony that his body began to hemorrhage under the pressure? Because even heaven's blueprint required the ultimate test. Luke 22:44 describes it. And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. If the Son of God had to pass through the valley of the shadow of death to reach his resurrection power, what makes you think your elevation would come without examination? The attacks you endured weren't evidence of God's absence, they were evidence of his trust. He knew you could handle what would destroy others. He knew your spirit was made of materials that don't break under pressure, they transform into diamonds. Every sleepless night when anxiety gripped your chest like a vice that was the enemy trying to suffocate your dreams before they could breathe. Every relationship that crumbled when you started seeking God more seriously, that was hell, removing distractions from your destiny. Every door that slammed shut when breakthrough seemed guaranteed, that was divine redirection, protecting you from settling for less than his best. But here's what's going to revolutionize how you see your pain. The enemy's greatest mistake was showing his hand too early. By attacking you so viciously, he revealed that you're carrying something he desperately wants to stop. And now that you know why you've been under fire, you can finally fight back with purpose. You survived what was designed to destroy you. You stood when stronger people fell. You kept believing when faith made no logical sense. You held on to hope when despair was the easier choice. That's not human resilience, dear one. That's divine DNA flowing through your bloodstream. Every attack was not proof of your weakness, it was proof of your weight in glory. The enemy doesn't waste his best weapons on empty vessels. Satan doesn't deploy principalities and powers against ordinary people. He reserves his most vicious assaults for those carrying the greatest potential for his defeat. You've been in combat training disguised as crisis. You've been in boot camp camouflaged as breakdown. You've been earning your stripes in the school of hard knocks, because what's coming next requires warriors, not worriers. The reason your test was so intense is because your testimony is going to be so powerful. The reason your battle was so fierce is because your breakthrough is going to be so magnificent. The reason hell fought you so hard is because heaven is about to use you so mightily. Type "I survived the storm" in the comments if you know the devil tried his worst but failed. Let your tribe find you. Let other warriors recognize a fellow soldier who's been through the fire and came out refined. But now I need to tell you something that's going to shift everything about how you see what's coming next. Because surviving the storm wasn't the end goal, it was the qualification. And what you've been qualified for is about to blow your mind. Right now, at this very moment, there's a courtroom session happening in the realm of eternity. And you, chosen one, are the subject of divine litigation that has been pending for decades. Picture this with me, the courtroom of heaven. Massive golden pillars reaching toward infinity. The throne of the Almighty blazing with fire and glory. And there, before the judge of all creation, sits a table covered with golden bowls. Revelation 5-8 tells us these bowls are full of incense, which are the prayers of God's holy people. Every tear you cried at 3 a.m. when the world was silent, collected as evidence. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was too broken to speak aloud, filed as testimony. Every sacrifice you made when nobody was watching, presented before the eternal judge as proof of your faithfulness. But here's what will shake you to your core. You weren't the only one in that courtroom today. The accuser was there too. Satan himself, pointing his gnarled finger at every mistake you've ever made, every moment of doubt, every time you stumbled, every season when your faith felt paper thin. Look at them, he shrieked. They failed the marriage test. They couldn't handle the financial pressure. They cracked under the weight of loss. They're unworthy of elevation. The prosecution presented its case with venomous precision. Bank statements showing your struggles, medical records documenting your pain, heart monitors revealing your sleepless nights, recorded conversations of your moments of despair. The enemy built his case like a prosecutor going for the death penalty, demanding that you remain in the pit of limitation forever. And for a moment, just a moment, the courtroom fell silent. Then the judge of eternity stood up, the same God who spoke galaxies into existence, the same voice that commanded light to pierce the darkness, the same hands that formed you in your mother's womb. And when he spoke, his words thundered across the halls of heaven with such authority that demons trembled and angels fell prostrate. Case dismissed. Those two words just shattered every chain hell ever tried to wrap around your destiny. But God wasn't finished. The gavel fell with the force of divine decree as he declared, "Not only is this case dismissed, but I'm issuing a new verdict. This chosen one has passed every test I allowed. They trusted me in the fire. They worshipped me in the wilderness. They praised me in the prison." The verdict is not just innocent, the verdict is elevation. Do you understand what just happened in the spirit realm? The same God who defended Job when Satan accused him has just stood up for you. The same voice that declared Jesus his beloved Son has just declared you his chosen one. The same authority that raised Christ from the dead has just issued a divine decree of promotion over your life. The prosecution's evidence has been thrown out. Every accusation has been overruled. Every limitation has been declared null and void. You are no longer bound by what you've been through. You are no longer defined by where you failed. You are no longer sentenced to the struggle. Heaven's court stenographer is typing these words across eternity. By divine decree, this chosen one is free to rise, free to reign, free to shine, free to step into the abundance that has been waiting in escrow since before time began. But here's what the enemy didn't count on when he dragged you into that courtroom. Every trial he used as evidence against you, God flipped it as evidence for you. Your depression wasn't disqualification. It was proof you could endure darkness and still seek light. Your financial struggles weren't evidence of God's absence. They were testimony of your faith when provision seemed impossible. Your broken relationships weren't signs of your unworthiness. They were evidence that you could love even when love wasn't returned. The very weapons the enemy formed against you. Isaiah 54:17 says they shall not prosper. But here's the part that will blow your mind. Those weapons didn't just fail to destroy you. They became the tools God used to forge you into someone unstoppable. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, can you feel the shift? That heaviness you've carried for decades. It's lifting. That shame that told you God was disappointed. It's evaporating. That fear that whispered you'd missed your chance, it's being replaced with divine certainty. The verdict isn't just favorable, chosen one. The verdict is final. No appeals court in hell. No higher authority than the judge who just ruled in your favor. What God has declared elevated, no man can demote. What heaven has promoted, earth cannot prevent. You need to say something out loud right now. Don't just think it. Don't just feel it. Declare it. Say these words with the authority of someone who just won the most important case of their life. The verdict is in my favor. Say it again, louder. The verdict is in my favor. One more time, like you believe it. The verdict is in my favor. Because chosen one, that gavel that just fell in heaven, it didn't just close your case, it opened your future. It didn't just dismiss your charges, it activated your elevation. It didn't just declare your innocence, it announced your promotion. But here's the question that will determine whether you walk out of this courtroom in victory or shuffle out in defeat. Will you accept the verdict heaven just rendered? Or will you keep living like you're still on trial? Dear chosen one, I need you to look me in the eyes through this screen and answer me this. What have you lost that you thought would never come back? What dreams died in your arms while you whispered desperate prayers into empty rooms? What pieces of your heart got buried so deep you stopped believing they could ever be resurrected? I know you're sitting there thinking about it right now. The marriage that crumbled after 37 years. The children who stopped calling. The business that collapsed when you needed it most. The diagnosis that changed everything. The friend who became a stranger. The bank account that went from abundance to anxiety. You've been carrying those ashes in your chest for so long, haven't you? Walking around with the weight of what used to be, what should have been, what you thought would never end. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that those ashes were your permanent address. But listen to me carefully, because I'm about to tell you something that will shatter every lie you've been living with. God doesn't leave his chosen ones sitting in ashes. He comes to make an exchange. Isaiah 61:3 declares with thunderous authority, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Did you catch that word? Instead. Not alongside. Not in addition to. Instead. God is not asking you to decorate your ashes and make them pretty. He's asking you to trade them in for something you never imagined possible. Every loss you've endured is about to be replaced. Every tear you've cried is about to be redeemed. Every scar you carry is about to be transformed. But here's what breaks my heart. Some of you have been holding on to those ashes so tightly, you've forgotten they were never meant to be your treasure. You've been protecting your pain like it's precious, rehearsing your hurt like it's your only story, wearing your wounds like they're your only identity. Stop it. Right now. Stop it. Those ashes in your hands, they're not your legacy, they're your down payment on a crown. You see, God doesn't operate like the world operates. The world says when something burns down, it's gone forever. When something dies, it stays dead. When something breaks, it can't be made whole. But God specializes in resurrection. He majors in restoration. He has a PhD in turning your worst into your best. Think about Job. This man lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health, his wife's support. The Bible says he sat in ashes and scraped his sores with broken pottery. Can you imagine that level of devastation? Sitting in the literal ashes of everything you once loved. But Job 42:10 tells us the rest of the story. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much. God didn't just give him back what he lost, he gave him double. That's not restoration, that's multiplication. That's not healing, that's overflow. That's not making you whole, that's making you wealthy in ways you never dreamed possible. Every midnight cry you've cried is about to become morning laughter. Every empty table is about to overflow with bread. Every ash in your life is about to become a crown on your head. But I need you to understand something crucial. This exchange doesn't happen automatically. It requires your participation. You can't hold on to the ashes and expect to receive the crown. You can't cling to the mourning and expect to feel the joy. You can't wrap yourself in despair and expect to wear the garment of praise. God is standing before you right now with his hands outstretched. In one hand, he's holding everything you've lost, transformed into everything you've always wanted. In the other hand, he's waiting for you to place those ashes you've been carrying. The trade is available. The exchange is ready. The question is, will you let go? I know what you're thinking, but you don't understand what I've been through. You don't know how much it cost me. You don't know how deep the pain goes. You're right. I don't know your specific story, but I know the God who wrote it. And he doesn't write tragedies, he writes triumphs that start in the ashes. David understood this when he wrote in Psalm 30:5, weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Your night of weeping is almost over. Chosen one, can you feel it? That stirring in your spirit, that whisper of hope you thought was dead. That's not your imagination. That's the sound of morning approaching. The ashes were not your ending, they were the soil where your crown was being grown. Every tear you cried watered the ground of your future. Every loss you endured fertilized the field of your destiny. Every moment you thought God had forgotten you, He was preparing something so beautiful, so abundant, so overwhelming that when you see it, you'll fall to your knees and thank Him for every single ash you had to walk through to get there. This is your moment of exchange. This is your divine trade-in. This is your sacred swap. God is ready to give you beauty for your ashes, joy for your mourning, praise for your despair. But you have to release what you're holding to receive what He's offering. If you've lost much but believe God will restore, if you're ready to trade those ashes for a crown, if you can feel something shifting in your spirit right now, comment beauty for ashes. Let heaven hear your declaration. Let the angels witness your faith. Let your own heart know that the exchange has begun. Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that your greatest loss was just God's setup for your greatest comeback. But here's what heaven just whispered to my spirit about you, chosen one. And this is going to shake you to your very foundation. You're not just in a season of testing anymore. You've crossed over. You've entered what I call the 7-day prophecy, a divine countdown that began the moment you clicked on this message. And what's about to unfold in the next 7 days will leave you speechless. Do you remember Joshua standing before the walls of Jericho? Those massive, impenetrable walls that had stood for generations, walls that seemed impossible to break, walls that mocked every prayer, every hope, every dream of freedom. For 6 days, the Israelites marched around those walls in complete silence. 6 days of walking, waiting, wondering if God had forgotten His promise. Can you imagine what they felt on day 3, day 5? The doubt creeping in like poison. Are we just walking in circles? Has God abandoned us? Maybe this isn't going to work. But Joshua knew something they didn't understand yet. God wasn't operating on their timeline. He was operating on heaven's calendar. And on the 7th day, Joshua 6:4 declares, 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets. And on the 7th day, you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. 7 days, 7 priests, 7 trumpets, 7 times around. And then the walls didn't just crack, chosen one. They didn't slowly crumble. They collapsed completely, supernaturally, instantaneously. Why am I telling you this ancient story? Because right now, as you're listening to my voice, you are Joshua. You are standing before your Jericho. And heaven's clock just struck 7. That financial wall that's been standing in your family for 3 generations. That health mountain that doctors say will never move. That relationship chasm that seems impossible to bridge. That dream that's been buried under years of disappointment. Those are your walls of Jericho. But here's the prophetic word burning in my spirit right now. For some of you watching this message, within the next 7 days, mark this down, within the next 7 days, you will see doors swing open that have been sealed shut. You will receive phone calls that change everything. You will witness healing flow through your body in ways that defy medical explanation. You will experience favor appear in places where you've only known rejection. This isn't motivational speaking, dear one. This is prophetic declaration. The clock of heaven is striking over your situation right now. You are in divine countdown. But why 7 days? Why not tomorrow? Why not next month? Because God operates in divine patterns, and 7 is the number of completion, of perfection, of breakthrough. In Genesis, God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th. For 6 days, you've been walking around your impossibility. But on the 7th day, your 7th day, God moves. Listen to me carefully. Something shifted in the spiritual realm the moment you heard these words. Angels are being dispatched. Circumstances are being rearranged. People are being positioned. Resources are being redirected. All for you. All for this moment. All for these next 7 days. But here's what's going to test your faith in the next week. It might look like nothing's happening on day 2. Day 4 might feel darker than before. Day 6 might whisper the lie that you've been deceived. But remember Joshua's army, they marched in silence for 6 days. Not because God wasn't working, but because God was setting up the miracle. Your breakthrough isn't delayed, it's being assembled. The clock of heaven doesn't tick like earthly time. One day in his courts is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. But when God says 7 days, he means 7 days. When he sets his timeline, hell itself cannot postpone it. I need you to understand the weight of this moment. You didn't find this message by accident. You weren't casually browsing when this word intersected your timeline. You were summoned here because heaven looked down at your situation and said, "Their 7 days begin now." That job you've been praying for, that healing you've been believing for, that reconciliation you've been hoping for, that financial breakthrough you've been crying for, they're all contained within these next 7 days. Not because I'm speaking it into existence, but because God already spoke it before time began. 7 days to watch impossibilities bow to the God of the impossible. 7 doors that will open in supernatural sequence. 7 breakthroughs that will prove heaven never forgot your address. But you must mark this moment. Right now, pause this message if you need to. Write down today's date, because this becomes your spiritual timestamp, the day heaven activated your 7-day window. The day you stopped being a spectator of miracles and became the recipient of one. I'm not asking you to manufacture faith. I'm asking you to recognize that faith is being manufactured inside you right now. That stirring in your chest isn't excitement, it's expectation. That knowing in your spirit isn't hope, it's certainty. You feel it, don't you? Something ancient awakening, something prophetic stirring. But here's the crucial part that will determine whether you experience this breakthrough or watch it pass by. You must declare it. Faith without declaration is like a seed that never breaks ground. Right now, speak these words over your situation. My 7-day window has begun. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes inevitable today. Because chosen one, what I'm about to reveal next will explain exactly what these 7 days will look like, how heaven will move, and why this might be the most important week of your entire life. Chosen one. As we reach the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these eternal truths with you like precious jewels in your heart. Remember this: you have passed the test. Every tear you've shed, every sleepless night you've endured, every moment you felt forgotten, it was all preparation, not punishment. God saw your faithfulness in the fire, your trust in the darkness, your hope in the wilderness, and now he is raising you up, not because you earned it, but because you endured it. Remember this: your 7-day window has begun. From this moment forward, watch for heaven's movement. Expect doors to open, calls to come, favor to flow. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes inevitable in these next 7 days. The walls of your Jericho are already trembling. And remember this most of all: you are never walking this journey alone. Even when the road feels uncertain, even when the breakthrough seems delayed, even when doubt whispers lies in your ear, the God who created the universe is orchestrating every detail of your elevation. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, and preparing blessings you can't even imagine. But more than that, you have a family right here. Look around these comments, see these hearts connecting, feel these spirits resonating. You've found your tribe, chosen one. Thousands of souls who understand your struggle, who believe in your calling, who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We are not just viewers on a screen. We are warriors in the spirit, bound together by faith, hope, and the unshakable love of Christ. Let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Now that you know God is raising you up, now that you understand your tests were actually your qualifications, now that you've entered your 7-day prophetic window, how will you walk differently tomorrow morning when you wake up? Before I release you into your destiny, join me in this prayer. Wherever you are right now, in your living room, your bedroom, your car, place your hand on your heart and let me speak over your life. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, the one who raises the humble and exalts the faithful. I come before you, now carrying every person who has watched this message. Father, you see their hearts. You know their struggles. You've counted every tear they've cried in secret, but you also see their crown. You know their calling. You've already written their victory story. Lord, I pray for supernatural breakthrough in these next 7 days. Let walls fall that have stood for generations. Let doors open that have been sealed shut. Let healing flow where sickness has lingered. Let provision appear where lack has reigned. Let relationships be restored where division has ruled. For those who are weary, breathe fresh strength into their bones. For those who are discouraged, remind them of your faithfulness. For those who feel forgotten, whisper their names until they hear you clearly. For those who are afraid, surround them with your perfect love that casts out all fear. Father, bless their families, their finances, their health, their dreams. Give them wisdom for every decision, courage for every challenge, and faith for every mountain. Let this 7-day window become a testimony of your power that they'll share for generations to come. And Lord, let them feel your presence right now. Let peace flood their hearts. Let hope rise in their spirits. Let them know beyond any doubt that they are loved, they are chosen, they are not alone. In the mighty name of Jesus, who conquered death so they could conquer defeat, who rose from the grave so they could rise from their circumstances, I seal this prayer and release this blessing over their lives. Amen. Now, chosen one, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, share what God spoke to your heart today. Tell us about the walls that are about to fall in your life. Ask for prayer for specific areas where you need breakthrough. Don't hold back. This community will surround you with intercession and encouragement. And please, if this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now, a family member, a friend, a co-worker, who's facing their own walls of Jericho. They need to know their 7-day window can begin today too. They need to know they're not alone in this battle. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You're not just subscribing to a channel, you're joining a movement of chosen ones who refuse to give up, who believe in miracles, who know that our God specializes in the impossible. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for receiving this word, for believing that your breakthrough is not just possible, it's inevitable. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your heart. You're ready for what God has prepared. Your 7 days have begun. Chosen one. The test is behind you. The elevation is before you. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop what God has already set in motion. Go in peace. Go in power. Go in the absolute certainty that heaven is moving on your behalf. Until we meet again, keep watching, keep believing, keep rising. The walls are falling. Your time is now.